Hello, locked and loaded diaries listeners. Where are you at? Where are you listening from? I'm Kimberly Walker. I'm the host of Locked and Loaded Diaries. Well, I'm a co host. My other two hosts, Heather Hedge Baker and Terry Caserta, who are Gold Star moms, are my co hosts. I'm a 17-year Army veteran. And I'll just wait till I see some comments. Um, if everybody could let me know where you're at in this world that is on fire right now. Where you at, everyone? Wyoming! Voice for the voiceless. You guys got a dust bowl of wind going on up there? Because I have dust in my mouth just sitting in the house. Oh, Lubbock, Texas. That's our own Heather. Hello, beautiful. Blessings to all. Where you at? Hello, beautiful, or blessings. You live in it, yes. Hey, sister. Who else we got in there? Blessings to all. What location are you at in the United States or overseas? Let's talk. Let's talk. Okay. Let's talk about the treatment of U.S. troops in the U.S. military. Well, first, let me introduce myself. I'm Kimberly Walker. I served in the Army for 17 years, and unfortunately, I was medically retired after a cervical spine injury that pretty much took my pension away. Ohio! I attended the Art Academy of Cincinnati, Ohio, graduated 2020. But I had to get out of there because it's just too gray. I had to come out to New Mexico where the sunshine is, but this place is on fire, literally. The dust is swirling, the wind is blowing. There's fires surrounding Santa Fe. That's where I'm at. I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Um, this world is on fire, and people like indigenous citizens of this nation that have lived here for generations are losing their farms. Livestock are in peril. They're losing their homes. It's not a good situation. Um, so anyway, yeah. So after I retired from the Army, I went to art school, and I'm like, what do I make art about? What do I know? I know what it's like to be a woman in the military, and um, so I started making art about combat heroes, female combat heroes. And I started doing research on women who actually gave their life in combat, who lost their lives in combat. And I started seeing a pattern of non combat deaths. A non combat death is a death that did not result um, directly as a result from a combat situation. Um, whether, you an improvised explosive device blew up on a convoy, or that you were, shot and killed, anything combat related. There's non-combat illnesses. Obviously, someone died of an illness. An accident, a non-combat accident is someone who died in an accident. But then I was finding like non-combat incidents, and directly my mind went to suicide, because a lot of service members do commit suicide in the combat zone. It is the pressure there is extremely high. You're away from home. Um, your daily companions, your loved ones, you're away from them. It's a lonely tour of duty. And the operational tempo is high. You're just like moving, and And then there's the boredom. Sometimes it's the opposite where the boredom is so extreme that service members do kill themselves in the combat zone. Um, but I was finding a pattern in these deaths of women in the combat zone, and they just weren't adding up. They were suspicious as hell. 2007, 2005, PFC Lavina Johnson was a 19-year-old Army private, and she was found in a burning tent, a contractor's tent in Iraq. Her body had been brutalized. Her teeth were knocked in. Her eye sockets were like bashed in. Um, she had been sexually assaulted. Somebody poured a corrosive liquid into her vagina, and her hands were coated in this same corrosive liquid, obviously trying to hide evidence of a sexual assault. Um, Her body was just broken, and her M16, her assigned weapon, was across the room, but they said she killed herself. She was right-handed, and she had a bullet wound to her left temple that did not match the ammunition of an M16, which is 5.56 millimeter round. They actually found like 9 millimeter slugs at the scene. Somebody murdered this girl, and the military had the gall to tell her family that she killed herself. She was 4'11", and an M16 is long. It's, if it probably came up from the floor to her, to like her chest. So the trigger is down like below her knees. It just wasn't physically possible for her to shoot herself in the left temple with an M16. And her family fought for justice. They went to Congress. Um, and like, nobody supported this family. The government turned their back on them. Congress, like, here's the thing, in the military, they have full immunity. They don't have to answer to anyone. They can brutalize and rape a girl and call it a suicide and get away with it. Look what they did to Pat Tillman. Pat Tillman was executed in Iraq. Yeah, friendly fire, fog of war. The the shooters who were Rangers in his unit, and I'm probably about to piss a bunch of people off, but honestly, uh, at this point, I really don't give a F anymore who I piss off. People have been, like, trying to shut down our voices. People that we know and love have been trying to shut down our voices. That's what happens to the families. They're These military families who are fighting for justice, they're abandoned by their friends, they're abandoned by their families, they're abandoned by the government. Everybody's telling them to move on. And yes, death happens every day, and you do have to move on. But when there's no accountability and there's no justice, how can you really move on without closure? So I digress. I was finding stories like this when I was doing my research in art school, and I made an art installation called Locked and Loaded. And what I did is I took the 43 names of the 43 women that I read about that died to non combat incidents in the combat zone during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And I took their names and I spray painted them on the bottom of a duffel bag, just like you do in the military, your name, your rank, your branch. And I think I put their date of death. And I stuffed them and I locked them with a padlock. And then I stacked them in a wall to represent the wall of secrecy that the military has kept up to these families, to American citizens. Like, nobody knows that this shit has been going on, right? You guys don't know. Hey, I wanna give a real shout out to, Chasing and the Back Porch Gang for being here and supporting us. We love you to death. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be live. We wouldn't have this voice. Transparency, no transparency. So, and then I took the keys of the padlocks and I made a cement block and I put each key in the cement. Hence the term locked and loaded. These stories are loaded with suspicion and corruption and secrecy and non accountability and criminal behavior by the US military. And the locks represent, we're never going to know what happened, what truly happened. Um, and every night, so anyway, I digress again. I do that. I am like scattered brain. um, whew, um, that that art installation took me places. It got a lot of media coverage in the art world in my local town of Cincinnati, where I was attending undergraduate at the time. Um, it got the attention of the Yale Norfolk School of Art, and they invited me to a summer residency there in 2019. I displayed it at Governor's Island in New York later that year in 2019. 2018, I displayed it at Art Prize, which is the most attended art fair in the nation in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And it was all over social media, and I had a family member reach out to me, and that was the sister of Specialist Kamisha Block, who was murdered by her squad leader in Iraq. Kamisha and her squad leader, Brandon Norris, staff sergeant, platoon sergeant, they were both military police. Um, they had an affair, and he was toxic and possessive and controlling, and he beat her, and the unit was well aware what was going on between these two. And Cam Kamisha was trying to get away from this man, and she was able to deploy to Iraq. Um, and he did not deploy. He was going through divorce. He had issues with PTSD. Um, and somehow he finagled his way over to Iraq. His commander and his first sergeant at the time, First Sergeant Clayton Sneed, who actually just retired from the Army 2020, right before the investigations happened at Fort Hood. He was the command sergeant major of the military police brigade at Fort Hood. That should tell you everything. This man is corrupt as fuck. Am I allowed to swear on here? Can I swear? Because that's how I express my feelings. I am a Cancer. That's my astrology sign. I'm very passionate and loyal, and I'm emotional, and I'm probably the crier in the gang. Anyway, they allowed this man to deploy with a weapon, and he murdered her. He shot her 4 times, and the family was notified and told them that their daughter was shot by friendly fire once. And when the family inspected her body, there was putty covering up a bullet wound in her head. They had, like, glued her hair to her face in a way that she would never style her hair to cover the wound, and she had bullet wounds in her chest. So right off the bat, they knew this was not friendly fire, and since he shot her and killed himself afterward, they closed the case as a simple homicide suicide. But the problem here is that the command allowed this to happen. By allowing the affair to happen, they did pull them into the office and confront them and ask them if they were having an affair, and they both denied it. And even in the investigation reports, like, the feedback after the fact, they were pretty much, like, saying that it was their fault of what happened. Like, Kamisha put herself in that position, and it's her fault that she was murdered by this senior enlisted person in her chain of command. I don't know, the army I came from, we nipped that shit in the bud, and that senior enlisted person is he's reprimanded. She might get a little, she might get punished too, but he is the one who's in a leadership position. There's a hierarchy there. There's power. That's how he was able to control her. And they let it happen right underneath their nose. Apparently, this guy was some hotshot who's done some, like, pretty hardcore things in his career. And I believe he ruled with fear and intimidation, and he intimidated his own people in his unit. And they let him do what he wants. They let him do what he wanted, and he was able to get over there, and he was able to kill her. Because if he couldn't have her, no one could. So back to Locked and Loaded. Um, by the way, a little side note of how Locked and Loaded Diaries came to fruition is when I was at Grand Rapids and displaying my exhibition of duffel bags every night at the end of the day. Actually, during the day, I would stand by the exhibition and I would tell all these stories to these art fans that are coming through. Um, and I was pissing people off. You got the military, is very highly regarded and supported by its citizens, and they don't want you talking shit about the military. And, I love my military. That's my military. I served for 17 years. Can you imagine how I feel? I am so disillusioned with my service, my loyalty, and to see what they're doing to service members today breaks my fucking heart. So don't come at me because we have people who are trying to shut us up. Don't come at me and tell me to tread lightly. If anybody gets in our way, we're taking you out. All right? No, I'm not making threats, but I'm just saying. It ain't going to be pretty. We're not going to take this lying down. You will not silence our voices because the American population deserves to know what is going on. But that's why the cover-ups are happening and why the media is not speaking and why Congress is not changing legislations to protect service members. Pentagon and the Congress and those in the freaking White House are all in the bed together. It doesn't matter what political party they are. We are not getting assistance from Republicans or Democrats. There's a few little nuggets in there who are trying to help, but they're only one or two voices. I mean, the Armed Forces Committee. Hello, that's your freaking job. take care of service members. So yeah, I'm a little pissed off. And I really am so thankful for you to hear me and let me speak on this and to vent my anger and my rage about this. We are all emotionally invested in this fight. So anyway, I digressed again. Let me go back. The sister of Kamisha Block contacted me, Shanta Block, and she said, "That's my sister on your duffel bag." And we just started communicating. And fast forward to 2020 when Vanessa Guillen was murdered. Families started coming out of the woodwork and they're saying, "This happened to me too. My son or daughter died in the military and I don't know what happened. They won't tell me what happened. They gave me an investigation report that was like 90% redacted. They're protecting the identities of the perpetrators in the military. While their sons and daughters die, the perpetrators and the commands that are letting this happen, they're investigating themselves. Commands investigate their own commands. It's the good old boy system." The summer of 2020 was horrendous. I was up every night till like 5 in the morning on the phone with family members, just listening to them. And that's what we're providing here. We're providing a platform for families to come out and tell their stories because no one's listening and no one knows. You know, you all wouldn't have known unless it was for chasing. We went to CrimeCon and everybody's like, "What?" Right. It's unfathomable. It's so unbelievable that people don't believe that this shit is happening all the time. Medical malpractice, negligence on the job, you know, cutting corners on safety, uh, rape, um, homicide by suicide. We call it homicide by suicide, where a service member is like pushed to the brink. Maybe they were raped. Maybe they've been bullied and hazed. Maybe their life is being made so unbearable that they have two choices. You can't just walk away. You can't just quit your job in the military. If you leave, you go AWOL and you go to prison. So they're taking that other route and they're taking their lives instead because it's so horrible that they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And mental health awareness, you know, yeah, it looks great on paper, but it's seen as a weakness. And it's that toxic patriarchal behavior. Toughen up, you're in the military, blah blah blah. Guess what? We're all human beings. And we all experience emotions. We all have a nervous system. We can feel pain, we can feel anxiety, we can feel grief, you know. I mean, we all know PTSD is a thing and we honor it after the fact. After the service member is damaged in service, we don't fix it then. We use outdated Western medicine. We pump service members full of pharmaceuticals. We cut into their body over and over again. How about offering holistic alternatives? Give a service member a lifeline so that they don't have to get out and go to the VA and receive more Western outdated treatment. you know how about some holistic health? How about some Chinese medicine? How about um plant medicine? Veterans deserve to be able to use cannabis. You're amazing, Heather. I mean, and so how come our service members aren't giving, and their families, the families are very important here too, because they're the ones that are left to pick up the pieces. And when the knock comes on their door for a non-combat death, they're immediately lied to. When Branda Caserta killed himself on a Navy ship by walking into the tail rotor of a helicopter because he couldn't find another way, he couldn't find a way out. They wouldn't let him reclass. They wouldn't let him take a new job. They wouldn't let him off the ship. He was being bullied by Navy officers, not the kids, not his peers, Navy officers, his leadership. He didn't have a lifeline. And that's what the Brandon Act has been designed to do, is to give a service member an outside lifeline so when they are having a mental health crisis, they can go there instead of being shut down by their chain of command because it's seen as weak, you know? It is a nightmare, Buckle Benny. Buckle Bunny. Buckle Bunny. I love that name. It's a nightmare. It is a living nightmare, and I'm gonna I had a really good experience in the military, until the very end, because I was pretty much seen as a liability after my injury, and I went into a deep depression, and I was not supported by my chain of command. I was like messing up on the job. I couldn't focus. I was in so much physical pain because I had 3 back-to-back spinal fusions within a year, and I was not supported, and yeah, I was messing up on the job, I was being punished. That's the kinda shit. That's that toxic freaking leadership in the military. Instead of, like, giving me a lifeline and saying, "Sergeant Walker, what do you need? Are you okay?" They just wanted me, to get back on the horse and ride out on to the battlefield, which I couldn't do because I'd had my cervical spine cut into 3 times in 1 year. The pain I was in was excruciating. It was so hard to get up in the morning and go to work. I'm lucky I survived that period of my life because I just wanted to die. They're not taking care of the troops that they're damaging. War is damaging on your psyche, on your body, and they just wanna pump you up with pharmaceuticals and tell you to get back to work? But they're covering up all of these deaths because guess what? If the American people knew that this was happening, that 75% of deaths are non-combat. Yeah, only 25% of troops die in battle. The other 75% die of some kind of non-combat death. And 93% of those deaths happen on US military bases. Yeah, take that one in. That was hard pill for me to swallow. I did not learn that until last year, and that's put out by Congress. They did a congressional research survey. They put out the numbers. They're well aware of what's going on, but they're not protecting service members. They're letting these things happen and they're not holding people accountable. And as long as you don't hold people accountable, it's going to continue to happen. And if we don't, and we can't tell the public because they won't let their sons and daughters enlist. It's all about enlistment numbers. I was an Army recruiter for 3 years and I believed in what I was selling. I had a personal relationship with about 90% of my recruits. 'cause I cared about them. They were making a huge life decision, and they were just trying to make their lives better. I always used to tell the girls that the hardest thing, of basic training was living with other girls. Otherwise, it's a blast, it's fun. I had a lot of fun in my career until I started becoming a senior leader and the politics were starting to happen. And it really started after the Iraq and Afghanistan war. The culture changed, and we were on this constant rotation of deploy, work, deploy, work, deploy, work. And that tires people down. And, that will drive someone to kill themselves. Um, there's just not enough resources and support. And they say that we have all these resources and stuff, but like I said, it looks good on paper, but the op tempo of the job is so high and there's not enough people to do the job that we're working these people to the bone and they're not getting enough downtime and all the stupid training requirements, check the box PowerPoint, it never ends. You hit the ground running at 6 o'clock every morning for physical fitness, and it don't stop. And guess what? And then sometimes you don't get home until maybe 6 or 7 p.m., Monday through Friday. And sometimes you have to go in and on the weekends. And you can never shut off your phone. You gotta have your phone on 24/7. God forbid you miss a phone call. I could not rest. I could not rest, and I was going through mental health issues and physical issues with my surgery, and I just wanted to die. Um, and so when they offered me a medical retirement, I took it. I gave up my pension because my life was so unmanageable, and I was in so much pain, and I felt so unsupported. I the love wasn't there for the job anymore, and I'm like, "This is the best thing that I can do for my soldiers, for myself, and for the army is to step down." And that was in 2015. And then in 2017, I started to hear about all these stories, and I wish I knew what I know now then. What did I miss? What did I not catch because I was so fucking busy and so focused on the mission? I had an open door policy with my soldiers though. Call me anytime, come in anytime and come talk to me. I was trying to juggle it all. You're a supervisor, you're a counselor, you're a therapist, you're a physical fitness instructor, your technical job, you're training soldiers, you're making sure they're proficient at the range, you're running ranges, um, training, 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 meetings, 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 meetings. It's a lot. I mean, if you thrive on chaos, enlist in the military. If you like being that busy, enlist. And I loved it for a long time, but when my spirit was broken and my body was broken, it was over for me. So, Locked and Loaded Diaries, the summer of 2020, when I met Shanta Black organized a rally outside the gates of Fort Hood because the numbers the number of deaths and missing soldiers at Fort Hood that summer exceeded 23, I believe. And we've got to do something. What do we do? What do we do? We got to organize. We need to do something. We can't just sit here on social media and talk about it. We got to do something. So I flew down from Cincinnati to Fort Hood, Texas, and I met Shanta Block. I met Heather Hedge Baker. And I knew when I saw Heather Hedge Baker's photo on social media, I'm like, who is this badass? I need to meet this girl. She looks so badass. I bet we could be friends. Um, I met Tanya Griefey, mother of Mason Weber, whose son died. His head was crushed by a military vehicle hood. It was supposed to be held up by a metal hook. Instead, they hooked it up with a strap. There, we have a video, we have an interview on Locked and Loaded Diaries on our podcast. The NCO in charge didn't want to take the time to go and unpack the hook because they were getting ready to deploy. They were trying to get this vehicle online and ready to deploy. And instead of taking the proper safety precautions, he said use the strap. The strap was not enough to hold the weight of the lid, and it crushed his head. And he died right there in front of his battle buddies. And that's another thing. The post-secondary trauma, that secondary PTSD affects the service members that are serving alongside these troops that are dying in the military. And then they're seeing that nothing becomes of it. Like nobody's being held accountable. Nobody's being held accountable. So I've just been raging for days, At first it was exhilaration because we went to CrimeCon and the back porch gang and chasing, like, were supporting us. We went from 43 followers to 1,500 followers. You guys are freaking amazing. We thought nobody cared, but nobody knew. Nobody knows. Even though I've been posting this shit on my social media since 2017. But do you think that, sometimes I feel like my friends don't care. Sometimes I feel like my military veteran peers don't care. Um, Sometimes I feel like my family don't care. Um, we're living life with purpose here. We're trying to save lives. Happy dance, Heather. But and then I talked to the families. I talked to the father of Navy sailor Danielle Lucky, who died in 2016. Her father, Derek, is a wonderful man, and his wife, Annette. They're such a wonderful couple. Um, I've talked to him twice, but both times were a 3-hour conversation. Like, I could talk to this man all day long. Um, and he just wants to be heard. He just wants to tell his story. His family doesn't want to hear about it anymore. His best friends have abandoned him. It's like they're on their own. Their new family are the Gold Star families who died just like Danielle did. She was on her first duty tour on a ship 2 weeks in, and she went to the medical unit because she was not feeling good. She was ill. She was like nauseous. And this is what the military does when you go to sick call. Sick call is um, a sick call is like where you go see the doc or whatever. Or the doc are really like lower enlisted troops, who don't they've got training, but it's not like they got degrees or anything like that. They don't have they're not medical doctors. And it is common practice to get handed 2 ibuprofens and go lay down. It happened to Caleb Smither, Heather's son. It happened to Danielle Lucky. So that's what she did. And she still wasn't feeling good. So she went back the next day. And they thought that maybe she had the flu. And they gave her the flu vaccination. Well, apparently, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to vaccinate somebody who's ill. So that's the second thing that they did wrong. First thing is they just kind of like, here, take some ibuprofen and go lay down. Second was giving her a vaccination while she was sick. She went back a third day They were giving her IV fluids, Tylenol, telling her to go on bed rest. Meanwhile, this sailor's body is shutting down. Fourth day, she goes back. Nothing. Like, it's the same thing. They keep sending her back to bed in her bunk. And she was getting a lot of support from, her fellow sailors. They were checking on her, making sure that she had food or water, you know, they gave her a rapid flu and a strep test, but what they did not do, they never tested her blood, never, like, took some blood, see what's going on. It was just like they were just like instead of seeing what was going on, getting to the root of the problem, they were covering it up, um, they were just treating the symptoms with Motrin and Tylenol and IV and all that stuff instead of trying to get to the root of the problem. So the 5th day, she goes to sick call, and they finally decide to take her blood. By then, her body was already shutting down. Her kidneys and her liver were failing. They were going into failure. She died of sepsis, 23 years old, and no one was held accountable. They told her father that Danielle received the best medical care the Navy had to offer. You got that right, because the medical care in the military is shit. That was the best they could offer. Laziness, incompetence. This girl died. They went to Congress. The freaking admirals from the Pentagon wouldn't even talk to them, wouldn't even look them in the eye. And then if you see, like, you can look up Derek Lucky on the internet and his interview or when he spoke at Congress. There's like nobody in the room. Like a couple of people from Armed Forces Committee. We're sorry for your loss, blah, 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 blah. We're going to look into this. This was 2016. They filed a claim with the Navy in 2017, which you weren't legally allowed to do until 2019 because of the Ferris Doctrine. The Ferris Doctrine was established in 1950, and it was a way to protect the military from being sued by military service members and their families um, if they if something medically, some kind of medical negligence or something. But that was put in place because they were protecting the doctors during a time of war who are making like last minute decisions under stress in a combat zone. I get it. That makes sense. In the combat zone, if you die in the combat zone, you're expected to die in the combat zone, not on US soil in a military base. So this FAIRS doctrine is so outdated, especially when we've got all these non-combat deaths that are happening. 75% all military deaths are non-combat. Um, so these families were pushing in the name of Richard Stayskull, if I'm pronouncing it right. He was misdiagnosed by the military multiple times until he finally went to a civilian doctor, and by then he had stage 4 cancer. Yeah, he's alive. He survived it. But he is the reason why, and these families, that they've changed the Ferris Doctrine where you can finally file a claim for medical malpractice with the US military. And there is a budget of $400 million to pay out these families since 2019. They've paid out $30,000 only. The namesake of the bill, Richard Stayskull, hasn't even received his claim. It hasn't been processed. And I understand medical malpractice takes a while, but guess what? I you know what? I just don't trust the government anymore. You know, I've been a Republican, I've been a Democrat. I feel like a full-fledged anarchist now. I wanna see the government burn to the ground. In the civilian sector, civilians are protected. There's OSHA for safety issues. You can get fired for even, like, putting someone's life in danger, you know? There's medical malpractice. There's protections against people on the job that military people don't get. How is that fair? How is that just? How is that right? You've got 1% of the nation that volunteer to serve in the military. Only 1%. And that's so that the other 99% don't have to, so that we don't need a draft. I might be biased, but I just feel like we should be you know, holding these service members like they are a special type of citizen, that they will sacrifice family, personal ambitions. I missed my sister's wedding. There are things that I have missed. We miss holidays, we miss births, we miss deaths. You need a freaking Red Cross message. You need a message from the Red Cross to contact the military in order to go to your own family's deathbed. And it's got to be your immediate family. It's your best friend, your grandma. Too bad. Unless you have a supportive, really supportive chain of command. And that's what I'm not seeing here with any of these deaths. You know, mm, you know, like I said, when I was an army recruiter, I believed in what I was selling. It changed my life. I'm going to grad school now because of the GI Bill. Um, I'm going to grad school to be an art therapist because I want to circle back around and I want to go back into the military as a civilian and I want to be there for these service members. I want I want to listen to them. I want to, you know, raise I want to raise awareness in the military, about the troubles that are happening. I want to be with the troops again. I want to save lives. And so the military has I feel like I'm here, I'm full circle and I've traveled the world. I was stationed in Hawaii, in Italy, in South Korea. Um, and then they're like, enough of that, you're going to Georgia. I went to Georgia. I've been deployed to Afghanistan twice. I've been to Kuwait. I've been to Pakistan. And when I was stationed in Italy, I got to travel Europe. Um, I've met amazing people from all over the world. I was never sexually assaulted. I feel like I was lucky enough in my career to be in some really supportive units, but I also think it's because I was in smaller units. I was an IT um, professional, and yeah, my resume of the army though is like it's just a list of things I don't want to ever do again. But like I had an amazing experience up until I was injured and became a liability. Um, and I had a really bad experience with the command I was in, but I was able to actually get transferred to a women-led command. My whole chain of command, my officer in charge was a woman, my sergeant major was a woman, my colonel was a woman. There were women all over this unit. Um, and it was good. They gave me space. They gave me space to heal. They gave me time. Like if I wasn't doing well, they would give me space and time. Um, So I believed in what I was selling as a recruiter. But we all know there's dirty recruiters out there. Um, and any other time, I would say that the military is America's best kept secret, where you can learn a trade. You would, you're doing physical fitness 5 days a week. You get free medical care. You can get a degree, like there's tuition assistance while you're in, so you can get your degree paid for while you're in, and then when you get out, you still get the GI Bill to go get your, whatever, your graduate degree. Um, yeah, it's and I was recruiting in Columbus, Georgia, which is mostly a black population, largely black population. I was the token white girl. Um, and yeah, we dealt a lot with youth that didn't really have a path in life to take. You know, um, they were looking for something bigger and better than themselves. And we're taking that away from them now. They're dying before their 4-year enlistment is even over with. And then nobody's being held accountable. It just blows my mind. So right now, I honestly wouldn't advise anybody enlist in the military until the military starts holding leadership accountable and making an example out of people. Because when you do that, that's how you fix shit. That's how you make change. It's not like, "Oh, we're gonna start this program called Get to Know Your Soldiers." That's not what it was called, but, Sergeant Major of the Army is all about it. It came up after what happened in Fort Hood. Like, dude, I enlisted in 1998, and my NCOs knew me. They knew my story. They knew my what was going on in my personal life. They, they were totally involved with career progression. They cared. So what has changed? Is it the op tempo? Is it being, we're not even at war right now. I mean, we are. We're deployed, believe it or not. We're all over the place. But why do we need a program like that in 2022 when that's like part of your job description? Soldiering 101. Like, everybody should have known what was going on with Caleb Smither and checking on him every day. Where was his leadership? Why was it up to just the soldiers to check on Caleb? Where was his NCO? Where was his platoon sergeant? Where was his first sergeant? Where was his company commander? Where was the executive officer? Where was the motor pool chief? Caleb didn't show up to work for a week. He was dead in his room. Where was everybody? Your first and primary job in the military is to take care of soldiers. All these motherfuckers need to be fired. Oh, and they're being fired. They're being silently retired with all their benefits. And then you know what these officers are doing, or these senior enlisted guys? They're going to get prestigious positions in huge organizations, or professors in prestigious universities. So it ain't no big deal to get retired as an officer. Their paycheck is freaking redonkulous. It just blows me away that you can get a 4-year degree in the military and make twice as much as the guy who's doing all the freaking manual labor down in the motor pool, putting his life in harm because there's no safety standards being freaking followed. You got the guy pushing papers, doing all the planning and bull crap, making the big bucks, almost freaking 6 figures in his little comfy fucking office. While all the enlisted troops are out there sweating and getting dirty and getting injured. And you got medical officers who are misdiagnosing these kids and killing them. You got predatory leaders who are bullying and hazing and harassing service members. They're sexually harassing them, they're sexually assaulting them. And then when you retaliate, or I mean, when you say something, when you raise your right hand and say, hey, this person is harassing me, they're raping me, they're coming into my bunk at night, then the retaliation sets in because all the buddies of that senior are going to gang up on you and they're not going to believe you, right? We don't believe women when they're raped, and we definitely don't believe men when they're raped because that is a thing that happens in the military. Remind me to tell, I have a story. I mean, okay, I'll just go through it really quick. This was during the Iraq and Afghanistan war, and there was a Army staff sergeant who was raping his male soldiers. And people were raising red flags and reporting him to the command, and they all covered up for him. This dude was like and he was built like a shit brick house. He was intimidating and mean and you know, what are we, a freaking military full of pussies where we can't hold people accountable because we're scared of them? They're cowards. The military has turned into a group of freaking cowards. And you know what? This has been happening since the Civil War. It has. Non-combat deaths have been happening since the Civil War. But come on, it's 2022. When is the media, when is Congress, when are organizations going to start standing up for the troops like we do all underrepresented and suppressed voices? Women, people of color, you know, people with alternative gender and sexuality identities. Um, I'm having a mind fuck. You, you know, we we are a separate population of people that we need people to stand up for us too, because we are in a world that runs by its own rules, and nobody will save us from ourselves. Heather, are you still there? Are you like moderating the chat log, or do I need to go back there and see if there's any questions? Yeah, 22 vets commit suicide every day because they're not getting the treatment that they need. I have had 1, 2, 3, 4 surgeries on my neck from from 4 herniated discs. Just recently, one of the bones died in my wrist, in my hand. Yeah, that's a thing. I wasn't getting blood to one of my lunate bones in my hand. And so they had to go out in there and cut out some bone. And now I have a plate in my wrist. I've been struggling with depression ever since my first deployment for 10 years. And I have been on antidepressants this whole decade. Like, that's the best the military has to offer in healthcare. There's no alternative. That's another reason why I'm like going into art therapy, because I'm very interested in psychedelic therapy. Um, psycho mushrooms, psilocybin, psycho. How come I can't say it? I got psycho on the mind. I'm feeling psycho. Anyway, MDMA, ketamine, cannabis. We don't have access to alternative forms of medicine. We are just, I feel like the military is almost like modern day slavery. Um, Even though that we are volunteers. and we have to just deal with what they give us as far as medical care. Why are veterans killing themselves every day? Why are 22 veterans killing themselves every day? You got to ask yourself that because they're not getting the treatment they need. They weren't when they were in, and now the VA system, you know how, oh my God, I cannot even get an appointment with a primary care doctor so that I can get referred to a specialty doctor after I had an injury on my shoulder. I strained my rotator cuff and I couldn't get help. I went to the ER, to a civilian ER hospital, and they were able to like help me with my pain and stuff. But they didn't have an MRI machine. They gave me an ultrasound to make sure there wasn't a blood clot. And so like I couldn't get in to see my primary care doctor. Um and I just recently weaned myself all of my antidepressants because I'm done. I'm done with Western medical care. Ketamine, I've received ketamine treatments for my depression, which helped a little bit. Like um, when I'm like deep in a depression where you can't get out of the bed kind, that was able to help me. I'm looking into ayahuasca and mushroom therapy, MDMA, like I said. That's why I want to be an art therapist. Um, and also uh, hold space for psychedelic therapy, because there's got to be other routes for military. And there's a lot of organizations out there, but it's like um, the VA ain't trying to direct you in that direction. The military's not trying to direct you in that direction. You're on your own. You might have given, so many years of your life to your country, um, but you better figure it out yourself when you get out, no matter how broken you are, And I just feel like, you know, with politicians and people working in government, people working in the White House, this we support the troops or thank you for your service. It doesn't really resonate with me. I really don't feel like they care about us. They're allowing these things to happen in the military, even though they know that these statistics are from 2006 to 2020, the 75% non-combat deaths, 93% die on US soil. They know the statistics and nothing has changed except for, the um the Ferris doctrine where you can file a claim. They're not gonna freaking do anything about it. That's where it stops. They always come up with all these great programs and what they're going to do and what their plans are, and we're not going to abandon you, and I won't forget your story, and but they're not doing anything. These are the people that we are voting for, folks. That's another thing you can do. Look and see like who did not support the bill for the burn pits. All the toxicity in the air from burn pits where soldiers are literally burning shit in the combat zone. So many people have cancer from being in country around burn pits. And Lindsey Graham didn't want to honor a bill that protects and allows a service member to file a claim. Mr. Old School Military Lawyer. That's a problem too. Like we got these archaic, old dinosaur thinking uh, people in Congress instead of being like thinking forward. What about, fucking science? How about some contemporary ways of It's like this old school method where like, well, I had to do it, I had to suffer, so you should suffer too kind of mentality. Um, there are there are people in Congress that voted against this bill. Sorry, my phone's going off. So, yeah, I don't believe all this freaking talk. Ugh. If I could just stand in front of Congress, I would ream them a new asshole. And I know that families are going in there and they got to be polite and they got to tell their story, but this combat veteran does nothing. Doesn't. I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose here. I ain't trying to sugarcoat shit. I am not trying to be silenced. And I always told, maybe something could happen, but I feel like that's my dharma, my purpose on this earth. Or else I wouldn't be where I am today. I would have never met Shanta. I would have never met Heather or Terry. I never maybe I'd never if I wouldn't have been discharged early to go on to art school, to do the research on deaths, female combat deaths, to find these suspicious stories, to make Locked and Loaded, um, the art installation. Um, I feel like it's all been a path to lead me to where I am today, which is Locked and Loaded Diaries, and talking to you all and being heard. Um, and that's what our podcast is about. We're just giving a platform because these families aren't heard, and nobody wants to talk to them anymore. It's like, oh, you're kind of a bummer, dude. Why don't you get over the death of your son and daughter, even though they were essentially murdered by the military? It might not have been a direct homicide, but negligence, incompetence, freaking corrupted people in power. You give a small town boy some power, and he goes and where he would have never gotten the power anywhere else. And he goes in the military and he does his time and he gets this power under his belt. And women too. Women can be extremely toxic in the military because they need to belong to the good old boys club. And if they ain't playing by their rules, they're going down. They're going down with the soldiers. They're going down with, the lower ranking folks that are pretty much like on the shit end of the stick of all that is happening. They're seen as like just it's like collateral damage. They're dispensable. That's it's a risk you take when you enlist in the military. No, you take a risk to die in combat, not in a freaking, state of the art military hospital. We're in the barracks of one of the most prestigious bases in the nation, Fort Bragg, home of the 82nd Airborne. There's some dark and deep and dirty shit going on there. You've got special forces, you've got all these like combat troopers. Um, there's a point when you've been to war and you've done some things and you're given special considerations and privileges that the rest of the people in the military don't get because you are special operations. They're weapon trafficking, they're drug trafficking, sex trafficking, they're killing each other. They're high on the job. They're drunk on the job. They're like dealing with their own trauma. So, and that's another thing. I don't ever think that a military service member should be discharged for substance abuse. because it comes in with the territory of PTSD. But instead, we kick them out on their ass with no benefits, and then that's why they kill themselves. That's why 22 veterans kill themselves every day. The military does not get the same treatment that an everyday Joe or Jane gets, even though our country is just jacked up to the max, you know? Uh, I mean, and our politicians are just like paying attention to just stupid shit, fighting amongst ourselves. We've got Republicans, Democrats, and we're fighting amongst ourselves. And don't think that's by accident. That's how the system was made to operate. Because if they keep us divided, we don't pay attention to what they're doing. Think about it. Instead, we're attacking each other. We're on social media arguing with perfect strangers. The US is one of the top nations in the world for sex trafficking. 199,000 children were involved with sex trafficking in the United States last year. Yeah, it really goes a lot deeper than just our military with me. Our government is not on our side. The Brandon Act is in the chat room. That's Terry Caserta. She's our other co-host on Locked and Loaded Diaries. And that's the story I told you about him walking onto a flight line into the tail rotor of a helicopter on a Navy ship in front of his whole command, and no one did anything. And you'd think, like, not in America. This stuff doesn't happen in America. We're the greatest nation in the world. But like Heather had said, is like, the military is a reflection of society, and how we treat our service members kind of, you know, what is it that you said, Heather? Um, kind of is a reflection, of this country. How can we not take care of our own military and just let them die? We're just leaving them for dead, one after the other. You know what we would really like to do? Yeah, whatever happened to No Person Left Behind? You know? What about taking care of your battle buddy? Um, what about, like, doing your job? A commander's job is to make sure that, like, yeah, the mission's being accomplished, but that troops are being taken care of, not your fucking own fucking promotion potential. People are stepping on the backs of our service members in order to get promoted because of the coveted 20-year pension. Are you that lame you can't do anything outside the military? That you gotta be corrupt as fuck? Or you won't stand up for somebody standing next to you in formation? You stand next to every day in formation, and then they don't show up for a week? And you know, because you're so fearful of losing your job? It's pathetic. It is pathetic. And if the shoe fits, wear it. Yeah, I've run into my handful of scumbags in the military, but most of the people I served with, you know, I still have relationships with today, 20 years down the road. You know, me and my platoon sergeant, my section sergeant from when I was in Italy from 99 to 2001 still talk almost, at least once a week, every day, or we're always sending little memes or puppy dog videos to one another. Um, and I have two beautiful women that I served with in my last duty station that were really supportive of me during my healing. Um, that I still talk to. Um, Another girl, she's in Grand Junction, she's retired. Um, and she was a first sergeant, and she knows exactly what I'm talking about. She's seen it. She's experienced. She's been in a room with a bunch of men in the army and see how they talk about women, how they treat women, how they talk about soldiers. But I really didn't experience a lot of that. Yeah, there was always there's a dickhead at every job. And yeah, I've come into contact with a lot of them. Being in a freaking primarily white male organization ran, by white men, uh and their egos and their power trips and these West Point fucking cadets who they are taught at West Point to think that they're better than the average Joe or Jane. But then there's a lot of down to earth, wonderful people from all different ethnic backgrounds. Um, from all over the nation with all these different experiences that they're bringing into the unit. And I see how they support one another and how they do. My career wasn't easy and we've had troubled soldiers, but I've seen how they like took care of one another. You know, they are in a team. We're all in the office together, working together, joking together, making sure and he's okay and she's okay. And did you eat lunch? Did you take a break? Did you get a cigarette? Are you tired? Are you hot? Do you need water? Is everything okay at home? How's your wife? How's your kids? How's your mom? How come you were late to work today? You know, there's like, I don't know, there's just, this is so unacceptable. What's happening? And that's why it makes me wish I would have stayed in because I would be rolling fucking heads right now if I seen this shit happening under my command. Motherfuckers. Did I ask, am I allowed to swear on here? Where are the professional YouTubers at? Because we're new here. Yeah, we gonna roll some heads. And that's what we want to do. We want to like learn how to like uh what's the word I'm looking for? We want to learn how to get people together, large amounts of people, and go to Congress. And we're working on it. It might take a couple years. That's right, Patty. You can't sue the military. It's like they have immunity. They have immunity, full immunity. They can do whatever the fuck they want to your son and daughter and get away with it. They can kill Pat Tillman. They can beat and rape and murder Lavina Johnson and call it a suicide. If they can do that, I mean, they're like, holy shit, look what we can do and get away with. And that's why it keeps happening. I just the narcissism and the ego that's got to be involved here. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. Colonel, Sergeant Major, you're no better than that private who is busting his balls to make mission for you so you look good, and you're going to abandon them when they need you the most and their families. Man. And that's the difference between, like, there's a two separate groups of Gold Star family members. A Gold Star family member is someone who's lost their child, or sister or parent or brother, to service. But there's the Gold Star families who lose their child in combat and they get all the glory. But then you have these non-combat deaths that are happening that are suspicious and corrupt as fuck. And they kind of like, they don't get the same treatment. They don't get the same respect. They don't, you know, they don't get talked about at Gold Star conferences. They're only focusing on service members who died gallantly in combat. Well, guess what? All these non-combat deaths, they deserve to die in combat. They know that that's a risk they're taking, and they're that patriotic that they're willing to take that risk. They deserve the opportunity to die gallantly on the battlefield, not in their bunks on a US military installation. Yeah, PV2 Caleb Smither in the house. We do want people to pay attention. So that's why we're pumping out the content. We're better at YouTube than we are at Instagram or TikTok, and I'm working on that. I'm trying to get my graduate degree right now. I'm stressed the fuck out if you can't tell. And as soon as this is coming off, I'm going to start hiking and doing yoga again and doing some self-care because to do this mission, and Terry and Heather, we have to practice self-care because this is extremely, extremely stressful work, especially if you don't get a lot of support from the people in your immediate world. Yeah, it, and this is like, and it causes intergenerational trauma when someone dies in a situation like that. When someone's murdered, um, or just died like um, an unlawful death, a wrongful death, that's the families that has to like experience that death, that affects their nervous system. It's in your organs, it's in your blood, um it's in your brain, and you've got to do something. You got to move your body, you've got to talk, you've got to scream, you've got to let it out because that PTSD or that grief, that trauma is in you. And the people around you can feel that. The people in your life, your family, your offspring. It affects everyone. It's like, I kind of relate it to ripples in the water. You know, when something like that happens, um, you drop that little pebble into the water, one death in the water, it ripples, the ripple effect into units, into families. Another death. It's rippling. The effects of this death. Um, Service members seeing what's happening and seeing that nobody is being held accountable and, you know, back to work. There's a ripple effect here. Just like all the unlawful and wrongful deaths that happen in the world every day, it's affecting humankind. But there is a way to change that. And it's called healing, and that comes from justice and that comes from love. And every time you drop one person when they heal, you drop that pebble into the water and there's a ripple effect. And other people can feel your healing and then they heal a little bit. We have to love one another. We have to stop fighting one another in this country. We need to stop the they them bullshit. We're all humans on this earth until we, you know, become spiritual beings. And the only way that we can heal this world that is in such great peril is through love. I honestly believe that is the reason we are here on this earth, is to love one another. Not this like tough, macho, patriarchal society that we're in where it's like, suck it up. People are suffering, they're getting underpaid, they're living in poverty, there's homeless veterans, children are starving, but we've got this kind of like this society that it's like, that's your problem, not mine, you know, capitalism, you know. We are so focused on money and success and moving up and money that we're not taking care of one another. And there are people literally dying in the streets. Our culture has to change, our entire culture. Oh shit, I have to be somewhere in 30 minutes. You guys, thanks for listening to me tonight. I'd like to thank personally Chasing Truth and the Back Porch Gang for being here, and to all our new subscribers. We have another interview that we are doing tomorrow night, and I will make sure that it is edited and ready to be released on Friday. So until then, keep checking in, keep loving one another, demand accountability. Call your congressman and say, this is wrong. Our military service members and their family deserve better than this. That is one way you can change it, and that is a big way. We've got to call our senators and our congresspeople and demand truth and justice for all. We love you. Good night. Thank you. Y'all have a great evening.